What it is, people, my name is Batman, and this year's Call of Duty has obviously presented a new set of challenges for the player base to overcome. The addition of exosuits has, for the first time in a decade perhaps, dramatically changed the nature of gunfighting in Call of Duty, and it is important we learn to adapt to this new landscape of mobilized combat as quickly as possible, and as such we can push ourselves, collectively, as an FPS community to play better, and more importantly, think harder, an attribute that will aid us for the rest of our lives in any capacity. Advanced warfare gunfighting essentially boils down to who can accurately aim down sights at their target first, because the bullet speed is instant and the TTK is low. There's generally nothing that can be done to change the outcome of a gunfight after someone has successfully landed the first shot. The person who gets the first shot off will win the gunfight almost every time, with the exceptions being those few instances where you get whacked by someone else as soon as you start firing, or when the person you're shooting exo thrusts away at just the right time to escape with very low health after your initial hit markers. This is what separates COD from other games such as Halo or Destiny or even Battlefield to an extent. In those games, because the TTK is much higher, because recoil is generally much higher, headshots and general accuracy matter a lot more and can make a much bigger difference, because players have more tactical combat options available such as grenades or supers or power weapons. A lot can happen after the first shots have been fired to change the outcome of the fight, but that is simply not the case in Call of Duty. It never has been and it never will be. Your focus when gunfighting in Advanced Warfare needs to revolve around delaying the point at which your opponent accurately acquires you in their ADS, while also getting an accurate ADS on your opponent as quickly as possible, because whoever gets that accurate ADS first is going to win the gunfight the vast majority of the time. And, not surprisingly, most of the attachments and or perks in this game that directly affect the gunfight itself revolve around ADS buffs. Quick Draw lets you ADS tenths of a second faster. Laser Sight means that at close ranges you can skip the ADS altogether. The sights allow you to ADS more accurately. Toughness, which means incoming enemy fire won't fuck up your ADS. And of course Stock, which I consider a must-have attachment for any assault rifles, lets you not only position your ADS more accurately by allowing more horizontal mobility and precision, but it also lets you walk around corners and other pieces of cover while remaining in ADS. And of course it allows you to strafe, which makes it even more difficult for your enemy to accurately acquire you in their sights. Now, most of these perks and or attachments are only ever going to alter your ADS by mere tenths of a second, which is an important point you understand. This is a Twitch shooter. Tenths of a second is often the difference between losing and winning a gunfight, and that's also why lag is a much more noticeable problem in COD as opposed to other titles. Now, of course, outside of the various perks and attachments available to you, you have the exosuit, which will always play the biggest role in determining who gets the accurate ADS first, and so it's important you understand how to make the exosuit work to your advantage consistently, and there are two primary ways to do this. The first and most effective method is to position yourself in a way that your enemy does not expect. When this is done properly, it almost guarantees the kill, or at the very least your survival, because it typically takes the opponent several full seconds to rediscover your position. On your screen right now is a clip of what I consider a textbook example of this. You'll notice this gentleman on my left briefly passes across the side of my screen. Now, I know he's seen me at this point, and I know that he will kill me if I don't make a move, so I immediately use the exosuit to position myself where the enemy should least expect me. Now listen closely, the position the enemy will always least expect is 180 degrees from where they most expect you. And it's important you're able to think a few moves ahead, just like in chess. Don't think about where the enemy is looking, but where the enemy is going to look. I know this motherfucker is gonna look left for me, so I want to be on his right. And I use the exo to get to the right, and voila. This guy looks left and his pants are around his ankles when I shoot him in the back. In any other past Call of Duty, I would have lost that gunfight, but because of the exosuit, I'm able to turn it around in my favor. Now, a few seconds later, I get another kill. That is an example of using the element of surprise to your favor. This guy's on the roof above me, waiting on me, and I jump up and get the kill. Never ever do what he did. If there is an enemy below you who is in close enough proximity so that the platform you're standing on is blocking the line of sight, and you know this enemy is aware of your presence, always make the first move, because the person below will always know when he's going to jump up to attack you, and you won't know. You cannot predict the precise second, the precise tenth of a second at which this enemy will jump up for the kill, which means when he jumps, or in the case of this example clip when I jumped, the jumper will always have the ADS advantage over the person standing still, because they will react quicker than the person standing still above, because they know what they're gonna do and when they're gonna do it, and the other guy doesn't. Don't be the nail, be the hammer. And that's true for basically every scenario. He who is in movement will always have the advantage over he who stands still. If an enemy has seen you and for whatever reason they have to break visual contact with you, they move behind cover to reload or regain their health, don't be in the same spot you were the first time they saw you when they reappear. This will mean they have to relocate you, and even if you're only 10 feet from your original position, this is going to delay the point at which they successfully ADS by at least a tenth of a second, which is what you need to win. Now, in those scenarios, scenarios in which you and your opponent have made visual contact and will likely maintain visual contact for the length of the gunfight, and this is actually the most common scenario. A more simple way to put it, I suppose, is if you and the bad guy see each other and are about to fucking shoot at each other, the second primary method for delaying your opponent's successful ADS is to put as much distance between your character and your enemy's crosshairs as possible, as quickly as possible. And again, it won't be a lot, but it's about shaving off and earning tenths of a second on your respective ADS times, because it's a game of tenths of a second. What movement can you make using your EXO that will require your opponent to move their reticle or crosshairs the longest possible distance on their screen? This is the major determining factor in every gunfight, assuming both parties are shooting at one another. If it's the kind of scenario where you're shooting someone who doesn't see you or they are shooting at someone else, that's not really a gunfight per se, that's just a fucking kill. But when you and an enemy combatant are fighting, the loser will always be the person who had to move their crosshairs the longest distance across their screen, because that requires the most tenths of a second and puts them at a disadvantage. And this has been true in past Call of Duties as well, but really the only way to delay someone's ADS times was with superior cover in past Call of Duty, such as something you could clip or head glitch, or of course with the infamous original acrobatic exosuit tactics, the drop shot and the jump shot, right? All the drop shot and the jump shot ever were clever ways to delay the opponent's ADS times, and they were very effective and remain useful, if not as effective, in AW as well. Now, with the addition of exosuits, there are a great many acrobatic tactics available to take advantage of in the same way people used to take advantage of the drop shot and the jump shot. Just always remember to keep the basic rule in your mind that your goal is to get as far away from the enemy's crosshairs as possible, as quickly as possible. For example, if you're on top of a structure, any structure, and the structure you are on is not blocking the line of sight the way it was in that previous hypothetical, so the enemy is at a distance where he can see you and you can see him and they are below you, the movement that will get you the farthest away from their crosshairs the fastest is to simply double jump up. Your enemy has to move their crosshairs up to target you. The farther up you go, the farther they will have to move, buying you time. If you descend in any way at all, you are making their job easier by moving closer to their crosshairs. A side thrust can be useful so long as you do not lose elevation in the process, but even then it won't buy you as much time as simply going up. Now the vertical double jump still leaves you a single thrust left to milk that last tenth of a second you may want to boost forward or backward. However, if you are on an even ground level with your opponent face to face, then double jumping won't buy you much time at all. In this scenario, I actually recommend a horizontal thrust to the left or right, and immediately after that, a vertical double jump thrust while still holding your joystick horizontally in the same direction you originally thrusted in. This will allow you to move diagonally as you move up. And in fact, anytime you are double jumping vertically, I recommend pushing your joystick to one side or another, as diagonal movement is always more effective than standard linear movement. And after the double jump, if you still have a thrust left, thrust in that direction once again. So to clarify, you thrust to the side, you double jump up diagonally by holding your joystick to the side, and then you thrust to that same side again. So you kind of do a Z, right? A big sort of horizontal Z. Now these are the two most basic scenarios you will find yourself in, but most often in this game there are going to be unique situations that require unique thrust movements. There will be oddly elevated platforms, oddly positioned pieces of cover, oddly angled cover and platforms that you're standing on. Your enemies will be in random positions around you, in the corner of your screen while you are on some hill or staircase or what have you. Success in this game will come down to your ability to adapt to these situations and put as much distance between yourself and your enemy's crosshair, regardless of the situation. Every situation might require its own unique solution. But you just have to always remember the proper mentality, that the goal when thrusting about is to delay your opponent's ADS for as long as possible. That's where I think people really fail to understand this game. That is where the skill is in delaying your opponent's ADS for as long as possible. That's what wins gunfights. That's what it all comes down to. That is the basic fundamental of this game. Delaying your opponent's ADS. Now, of course, on the other hand, you yourself want to be able to counter other opponents' thrust moves. You want to ADS with as little delay as possible, and that requires proper aiming techniques. Something important to keep in mind is that anytime an opponent is thrusting about with reckless abandon, don't try to track said opponent by following his movements through the air with your crosshairs ADS. But instead, think about where he's going to land, where he will end up, and start moving your crosshairs to that spot instead, so that you can beat him to it and have your crosshairs ready and waiting, right? So don't follow the guy through the air, just think about where he's gonna land and meet him there with your crosshairs. So and then, instead of trailing behind the motherfucker a tenth of a second, when you focus on where he's gonna be, not where he is, you're gonna get the jump on him. You're gonna cut off tenths of a second on the time in which it takes you to successfully ADS. Especially because when you follow him around with the crosshairs, you can get all twisted up and get yourself killed. Case in point, mistake I see a lot of people make, alright? When somebody jumps over you, don't try to follow the guy up in the air, because you're gonna look up at the sky and come to the sad realization that you can't bend over backwards. And then you're gonna get fucking popped. Instead, just turn around and wait for the guy to land in front of you. Drop shot as soon as he lands, that always throws them off. Now, something else you need to do is turn off your vibrations. It's the easiest thing that I know most of you have not done, and it will make a significant difference in the consistency and effectiveness of your aiming. The vibrations are designed for immersion, for a more cinematic experience. Turn them on during the campaign. But in multiplayer, if you're serious about upping your game, you gotta turn that shit off. Shooting someone is an act of precision. It's no big secret that precision is much more difficult when your mind and hand muscles have to overcompensate for constant shaking. Now, when you first take vibrations off, it's gonna feel weird. This is because your mind isn't used to the lack of vibrations. It feels the need to overcompensate for it. You're gonna feel an urge to turn them back on just because it doesn't feel right. Ignore this urge and get used to the new settings. It won't take long before you're comfortable with it, and anytime you make a significant change to your gameplay settings, there's gonna be a transitional period where you have to grow accustomed to the new feature. This transitional period is necessary if you are serious about getting better in the long run. And you're gonna face that transitional period if you wanna, switch to a tactical button layout so you can drop shot, if you wanna change your sensitivity, whatever. Outside of that, the first fundamental you should understand to acquire that ADS faster is the importance of hip firing. The ADS reticle moves much slower than the un-ADS'd crosshairs. And this is true for basically every FPS, so listen closely. When you are at close to even medium ranges, and your enemy is jumping up and down and thrusting left and right, it's going to be much easier to keep up with their movements using hip fire instead of aiming down the sights, because you lose so much mobility, not only in terms of player movement, but just gun handling when you ADS. When you ADS, you're nerfing your sensitivity. Your reticle moves across the screen much slower than your un-ADS crosshairs. If you're ADS and the guy is thrusting left and right, you're going to have to come out of ADS and then re-ADS to get back on target. You can get killed in the time it takes to ADS. That's why attachments like Quick Draw are so popular. But with hip fire, you can just keep him in your crosshairs the whole time as he moves back and forth because you can keep up with him. The cool thing about laser sight is that it reduces ADS time 100%. There is no ADS time if the guy's close enough. Think of it as a super good quick draw handle that only works at closer ranges. If the enemy's body fills up your hipfire crosshairs, then ADSing is counterproductive. Plus, you lose a lot of vision when you ADS. You can't see what's going on around you or on the minimap. Now, granted, hipfire isn't always the best option depending on the gun, and at longer ranges, you do have to readjust your aim, and the rule is, never try to readjust your aim while aiming. If you can get the enemy in the middle of your crosshairs, the game will automatically center your aim for you when you pull left trigger. So you aim at a bad guy, he jumps in a wild direction, instead of trying to move your reticle towards him, un-ADS real quick, adjust your hipfire crosshairs, and then re-ADS. Now, sensitivities. It's been scientifically proven that 6 sensitivity is the best sensitivity. And if you have any further advice or tips or tricks that you think people should be aware of in this game, I encourage you to leave them in a comment below for the whole world to see. And please rate the video if you found it helpful. This is Batman, signing out.
I can't even Xbox record that?